The story begins in the present day, where a poetry activity is being held for senior citizens. Among the participants is 70-year-old Asin, whose poem takes her down memory lane, unraveling the story of her childhood. Back in the past, Asin's mother was a resilient haenyeo, a female diver who worked tirelessly to support her family. Having lost her bedridden husband, she remarried, but life remained a struggle. Despite financial hardships, Asin was sent to live with her father's well-off relatives so she could receive a good education. However, her time in their home was far from pleasant. She was treated unfairly and made to feel like an outsider. Desperate for love and warmth, Asin frequently begged her mother to let her live with her instead. Even when she achieved second place in a poetry competition, her mother, overwhelmed with work, was unable to acknowledge her success. Asin returned to her uncle's house, where she was burdened with endless chores. Meanwhile, her mother finally found time to read her poem. In it, Asin promised to give her mother 1,001 a day in the future, so she wouldn't have to work so hard. Deeply moved by these heartfelt words, her mother was overcome with emotion and fury at how her daughter was being treated. Without hesitation, she stormed into the house, caused an uproar, and left behind an abundance of fish as a symbolic rejection of their mistreatment. Taking Asin by the hand, she brought her home for good. As they settled into their new life together, Asin experienced another setback when she was unfairly denied the class president position. Despite winning the election, the title was handed to the son of a powerful figure. Frustrated by the injustice, her mother took matters into her own hands, visiting the school and bribing the teacher to ensure Asin received better treatment. One day, upon returning home, her mother threw away all the cigarettes in the house. She did so with newfound determination, as Asin had once promised to buy her a pearl necklace in the future. To live long enough to see that promise fulfilled, she vowed to take better care of herself. But fate had other plans. By 1961, years of grueling labor in the sea had taken their toll. Asin's mother fell seriously ill. Despite the devastation of watching her mother's health deteriorate, she wasn't entirely alone. A quiet yet unwavering presence in her life was Gwon-sik, a boy who silently looked after her, always ensuring she had something to eat. One evening, her mother prepared abalone for her, perhaps as a final act of love. She urged Asin never to become a servant to her stepfather's family after her passing. Instead, she insisted that Asin return to her uncle's house and plead to stay there, believing it was the only way she could have a better future. Soon after, her mother passed away, leaving a void in Asin's heart. But Gwon-sik remained by her side. Following her mother's death, Asin's stepfather convinced her to stay and help him with household duties. One day, she noticed a small patch of land outside their home. Determined to create something of her own, she transformed it into a thriving cabbage farm, with Gwon-sik and local women lending their support. Through it all, Gwon-sik continued to look out for her, offering help in quiet but meaningful ways. Asin eventually realized she could not pursue her studies while shouldering endless responsibilities. She resolved to leave, but her stepfather persuaded her to stay by promising to send her to the mainland to study Korean literature. To fund her education, she began selling cabbages at the market. Yet in truth, it was Gwon-sik who handled most of the selling while Asin studied. However, their growing bond did not go unnoticed. Gwon-sik's grandmother arrived one day and forcefully sent Asin away, determined to prevent any possibility of marriage between them. The local women's teasing about their relationship only fueled her grandmother's determination. As Asin ran off, she called out a firm no, thank you, in response to the idea of marrying Gwon-sik, bringing the episode to an emotional close. The second episode picks up with Gwon-sik rushing after Asin, who had been chased away by his strict grandmother. The two wander together, and we learn more about Gwon-sik's background. His parents had run away together before they were married, which explains why his grandmother is adamant about keeping him away from Asin. As they stroll, Asin repeatedly insists that she would never consider marrying him. However, Gwon-sik, perhaps frustrated by her teasing, attempts to kiss her but misses. It's in this moment that we realize Asin may have feelings for him too. As he clumsily confesses in his own indirect way, the two share an awkward yet endearing kiss before continuing on in silence. In the present-day storyline, an older Asin is seen with her children, revealing that her daughter has been narrating the story all along. Returning to the past, Asin arrives home to find her stepfather hiding with another woman. Later that night, she overhears their conversation. This woman, Nin, refuses to take responsibility for raising Asin. With nowhere else to turn, Asin goes to her uncle's house. But instead of offering support, her uncle tries to convince her to abandon her education and work in a factory, arguing that the family's financial situation cannot sustain her college ambitions. The next day, Asin officially leaves her stepfather's house, only to learn that he has no money to give her. For years, he had promised to support her in exchange for her raising her younger siblings, but now that she needs his help, he has nothing to offer. With no home, no money, and no clear path forward, she turns to Gwon-sik. Overwhelmed by the weight of her situation, she breaks down in tears, and in an effort to provide a solution, Gwon-sik offers to marry her. However, Asin has always dreamed of marrying someone from the mainland, so she could leave Jeju Island behind for good. Determined to take control of their own destinies, Asin and Gwon-sik make a daring plan. They steal jewelry from their respective homes, pack their belongings, and disguise themselves as adults, waiting for a ship to the mainland. Once on board, the captain grows suspicious, suspecting them to be runaways. But Asin, ever quick-witted, boldly claims they are a married couple, shutting down further questions. Upon arriving in Busan, they attempt to pawn their stolen jewelry, but the shopkeeper quickly catches on and refuses to accept it. As they search for a place to stay, they pretend to be newlyweds who have lost their wallets, claiming their IDs are inside. Surprisingly, the owners of a small inn take pity on them, offering shelter along with food and alcohol. The next morning, however, they wake up to a shocking realization: all their belongings have been stolen. When they confront the innkeepers, the couple feigns innocence, but it's clear they knew the truth all along. Asin and Gwon-sik are given an ultimatum: leave immediately or risk being reported to the police. Now stranded with nothing, Asin recalls the fairy tale of Hansel and Gretel, how the siblings used their wits to outsmart the wicked witch. Inspired, she devises a bold plan. That night, they spy on the innkeepers as they lure in another unsuspecting victim. Once the new guest is in her room, Asin and Gwon-sik sneak in and warn her not to turn off her light, preventing the innkeepers from robbing her. Frustrated, the owners decide to overcharge the woman instead and head to bed. Seizing the opportunity, Asin and Gwon-sik sneak into their room to reclaim their stolen money. Just as their plan is about to succeed, Asin notices something. The owner's daughter is wearing the hair clip that Gwon-sik had given her. Determined to get it back, she reaches for it, but in doing so, accidentally wakes up the entire household. As the owners come after them, the two make a run for it. However, Asin gets caught. The episode ends with Gwon-sik summoning every ounce of courage he has, striking their captors in a desperate attempt to save her. Asin and Gwon-sik's desperate attempt to reclaim their stolen belongings has landed them in the police station. There, they discover that Gwon-sik's mother has been tirelessly searching for them, visiting multiple police stations in Busan. Upon reuniting with her son, she immediately demands the return of her precious golden frog, an item of great value that Gwon-sik had taken from their home. Meanwhile, the woman who had robbed them has already pawned off their jewelry, including the golden frog. When it comes time for payment at the scammer's residence, Gwon-sik's mother arrives just in time, ready to reclaim what's rightfully hers. A heated confrontation breaks out, leading to the police stepping in and arresting the scammer, who is exposed as a repeat offender. With the matter resolved, Asin, Gwon-sik, and his mother return to Jeju Island. Back home, Gwon-sik receives relatively light consequences for running away. He has only been suspended from school. But for Asin, the punishment is far worse. She learns that her enrollment has been permanently revoked, shattering any chance of continuing her education. When Gwon-sik confronts Asin's grandmother about this injustice, he is met with a cruel but painfully true reality. When a boy runs away, it's considered brave. When a girl does the same, it brings shame upon her. Now left with nothing but a middle school diploma, Asin's future looks bleak. In response, Gwon-sik declares that he will marry her. The next day, Gwon-sik's mother visits Asin, gently trying to dissuade her from marrying her son. Later, Gwon-sik approaches Asin's uncle, formally requesting her hand in marriage. But before anyone else can respond, Asin outright refuses. As a result, she soon finds herself being forced into a blind date with a much older man, a 30-year-old widower searching for a second wife to raise his children. In exchange, he offers to cover her college tuition. The situation is heartbreaking because Asin knows this is exactly what her mother had feared for her, that she would end up becoming someone's housekeeper rather than living her own life. That night, when Gwansik hears about Asin being pushed into an arranged marriage, he is furious. He storms into her uncle's house, demanding answers, but when that fails, he rushes to find Asin herself. Spotting her walking with the older man, he pulls her aside and pleads with her not to go through with it. In a desperate attempt to change her mind, he places a ring on her finger. However, Asin immediately removes it, throwing it into a nearby field. With tears in her eyes, she tells him that if he truly wants her to be happy, he must let her go because his presence is preventing her from finding freedom. Crushed, Gwansik walks away. Later, Asin returns to the field in search of the ring but is unable to find it. The next day, as Asin prepares for her wedding in a state of quiet misery, Gwansik departs for the mainland to compete in an athletics tournament. It is then revealed that Gwansik's mother had spoken to Asin, telling her about his incredible athletic talent and how marrying him would mean forcing him to give up his future. Realizing that her presence in his life could hold him back, Asin had lied, pretending that she never wanted to be with him in the first place, in order to push him toward his dreams. However, what she didn't know was that Gwansik had only pursued athletics for one reason: to win medals and provide a better life for her. Now, without Asin, he has lost all interest in the sport. It is in this moment that Asin finally understands just how much Gwansik has been her pillar of strength all these years. Overcome with emotion, she rushes to the harbor, hoping to catch him before he leaves. But by the time she arrives, the ship is already sailing away. Desperate, she cries out his name, hoping he will hear her. Just when it seems like he is truly gone, Gwansik turns, sees her running along the shore, and in a dramatic display of determination, leaps into the sea, swimming back to her. As the villagers gather to witness the emotional reunion, Asin and Gwansik embrace, defying the disapproval of his family. In the present-day storyline, Gwansik's sister reveals to Asin's daughter that she was conceived on the very night her parents reunited. The episode then flashes back to a young Asin and Gwansik, now parents, joyfully playing with their baby daughter, Gamong. Through her narration, Gamong reflects on how her parents gave up their dreams to start a family at a young age. Finally, in the epilogue, a touching revelation unfolds. Gwansik had secretly gone back to the pawn shop to retrieve a wedding ring for Asin. The episode ends with the couple selecting their wedding clothes, finally stepping into a new chapter of their lives together. The story jumps forward several years, bringing us to a point where Asin is struggling through the challenges of adulthood. During this time, she crosses paths with Minho, the woman who had once been her stepfather's mistress but is now his wife. Minho has just given birth to her first child, and despite their complicated past, Asin steps in to help her. We learn that Minho married Asin's stepfather a decade after her mother's passing, and over the years, she softened and became a mother to Asin's younger half-siblings. In this unexpected moment of connection, the tension between them fades, replaced by an unspoken understanding. Later, Asin returns home with gifts for her family, including a tricycle that Minho gave her for Gamong. However, her excitement is quickly dampened when her in-laws disapprove. Gwansik's grandmother insists that Gamong, as a girl, shouldn't learn how to ride it. That evening, Asin confides in Gwansik, expressing her deep frustration. She pleads with him to let Gamong experience the freedom she never had, fearing that if she is denied even something as simple as a tricycle, she will be confined to the kitchen, just as Asin had been. The next day, Gwansik takes a stand for their daughter. He buys a brand-new, expensive tricycle, one valuable enough that his family wouldn't dare sell it off for something as trivial as candy. This ensures that Gamong has the chance to ride freely, bringing Asin a rare moment of joy. The timeline then jumps forward to 1996, the present, where Gamong, now an adult, narrates her mother's story. As she navigates her own life, she secures a job and is introduced to her fiancé's influential mother. However, The woman looks down on Gamong, belittling her for coming from a poor background. Gamong remains composed despite the condescending remarks, but when her fiancé's mother insists that she quit her job after marriage, she refuses. Aware of the sacrifices her mother made to ensure her independence, Gamong stands firm and later tells her fiancé that she is in no rush to marry. She values her own ambitions too much to give them up. Meanwhile, back in the past, Asin and Gwansik are expecting their second child. However, when Asin discovers that Gwansik's family is pressuring Gamong to become a haenyeo, a female diver, she is furious. Memories of her own mother's suffering come rushing back. Asin, who had lost her mother to an illness caused by years of grueling underwater labor, refuses to let her daughter meet the same fate. Her defiance leads to a heated confrontation with her mother-in-law, who, in a fit of anger, slaps Asin. Just then, Gwansik arrives home from his fishing shift, witnessing the mistreatment firsthand. Unable to endure the toxic environment any longer, he makes a bold decision. He takes Asin and Gamong and leaves his family home. The three of them move into a modest rented room with a small kitchen. Despite their struggles, they find solace in each other. Then, unexpectedly, they discover that someone has secretly paid their rent for 3 months. The identity of their mysterious benefactor remains unknown. Days pass, and one evening, Gwansik returns home with a broken finger. Asin is devastated to see him injured, and later that night, she notices additional bruises on his body. Pretending to be cheerful, she sends him off to work the next morning before setting out to uncover the truth. She arrives at the home of Sang-il, the man she had once been pressured to marry. From a village woman, Asin learns that Sang-il has been exploiting and abusing Gwansik, forcing him to work even after his hand was injured. Worse yet, when Gwansik was hurt at sea, Sang-il refused to turn the boat around, deliberately worsening his condition. Meanwhile, at the docks, we see Sang-il once again mistreating Gwansik, denying him the right to go home after their fishing shift. Just as he raises a foot to kick Gwansik, Asin arrives, fury burning in her eyes. She marches up to them and announces that Gwansik will never work for Sang-il again. As they turn to leave, Sang-il hurls insults at Gwansik, mocking him. But this time, Asin refuses to stay silent. In a powerful moment of defiance, she kicks Sang-il hard in the shin, leaving him stunned as she and Gwansik walk away together. The episode then shifts back to 1996, where an older Asin is seen assisting Gwansik, who now has a bad leg after enduring years of hard labor. As they sit together, there is a quiet understanding between them, a lifetime of struggles, resilience, and unwavering love. The first volume of When Life Gives You Tangerines is a beautifully woven tale of love, sacrifice, and resilience, capturing the life of Asin from her troubled childhood to her struggles as an adult. The series seamlessly blends past and present, giving us a multi-generational story that is both emotionally rich and thematically profound. At its core, this drama isn't just about romance. It's a testament to the hardships faced by women in a rigid, patriarchal society. Asin's journey is filled with heartbreak, but her determination to break free from the cycle of suffering makes her an incredibly compelling protagonist. From being abandoned by her paternal family to fighting for her right to education and independence, her story is deeply moving. One of the most striking aspects of this volume is its critique of gender roles. Throughout the episodes, we see how societal expectations place unfair burdens on women, whether it's Asin being denied opportunities or her daughter, Gamong, being pressured to follow in her grandmother's footsteps as a haenyeo. The generational struggles make for a powerful narrative, showing how deeply ingrained these issues are and how they continue to shape lives, even decades later. Gwansik serves as the unwavering pillar in Asin's life, but what makes their relationship stand out is that it doesn't conform to the traditional knight in shining armor trope. While he fiercely supports Asin, he also faces his own struggles, making their bond feel authentic rather than idealized. His unwavering devotion to her is both heartwarming and tragic, especially as he sacrifices his dreams in the name of love. The use of time jumps between the 1960s and the 1990s adds another layer of emotional weight to the story. Seeing Gamong as an adult, facing similar prejudices as her mother once did, reinforces the idea that while times may change, some battles remain the same. However, Her refusal to conform to societal expectations gives us hope that change is possible, even if it comes slowly. With Volume 1 setting such a strong foundation, there are plenty of intriguing possibilities for the second part of the story. One of the biggest unresolved questions is who secretly paid for Asin and Gwonsik's rent after they left his family home. Could it be someone from Gwonsik's family feeling remorse? Or perhaps Minho, Asin's former stepmother, in an attempt to quietly help her? This mystery is likely to unfold in the next volume. Another major question is how Gwonsik's injury will impact their lives moving forward. In the present timeline, we see that years of hard labor have left him with a bad leg, but we don't yet know the full story of how this affected his ability to provide for his family. Will this be the beginning of a new struggle for them in Volume 2? Gamung's storyline is also poised for major developments. Her rejection of her fiancé's family's expectations suggests that she is determined to live life on her own terms. But will this decision lead her down a different path than her mother's? Or will she find herself in a similar struggle? Perhaps Volume 2 will explore whether she truly manages to break the cycle of hardship that has plagued her family for generations. And finally, there is the question of Asin and Gwonsik's relationship in their later years. The show has focused heavily on their youth and early struggles, but how do they navigate their relationship as they grow older? Will they find peace and happiness in their later years, or will life continue to test them? Volume 1 of When Life Gives You Tangerines is an emotionally gripping, beautifully written story that masterfully balances heartbreak with moments of warmth and joy. The storytelling is rich with depth, making it impossible not to become deeply invested in Asin's journey. With its powerful social commentary, complex characters, and deeply emotional narrative, When Life Gives You Tangerines has set the bar high for Volume 2. If the second volume continues this level of storytelling, we can expect an even deeper exploration of love, loss, and the fight for self-determination. This is more than just a drama. It's a reflection of real-life struggles, making it one of the most compelling K-dramas of the year. Volume 2 has a lot of ground to cover, but if it follows the emotional intensity and brilliance of the first, it's bound to be just as unforgettable.
Asin prevents Gwonsik from taking a job with Sangil, but survival becomes incredibly difficult due to the overwhelming influence of Sangil's family. Struggling to secure employment, Gwonsik and Asin face severe food shortages. Even their landlords refuse to offer any assistance. Reflecting on Sean's significance, Asin remembers visiting her grandmother for help but ultimately cannot bring herself to ask. Later, she shares their hardships with Gwonsik. Unexpectedly, Asin's grandmother arrives, offering her savings and treasured possessions. It turns out that Asin's mother had asked her grandmother to take care of her as a way to reconcile her guilt with gratitude. Determined to honor her grandmother's kindness, Gwonsik and Asin make a promise to succeed. They invest in a boat, and Asin gives birth to a son, finally gaining acceptance from Gwonsik's family. In a heartfelt gesture, Gwonsik purchases the house where Asin's mother once lived, providing Asin with the first real home she has ever had. As they settle into their new life, Asin has a dream about her mother. Taking it as a sign, she rushes to the hospital with a neighbor's help and gives birth to her third child. Later, she rises to the position of deputy president, working alongside Sangil to enforce regulations, including a crackdown on casual dance practices. During an inspection, Asin encounters Sangil's deeply unhappy wife and helps her escape. In a moment of bitter reflection, Sangil's wife wishes that Asin had married Sangil instead. That evening, Gwonsik invites Asin onto the boat, but she hesitates, wary of old superstitions. However, when GM Meong boards, Asin decides to challenge the belief, steps onto the boat, and paints its name. As the episode concludes, she feels a profound sense of happiness as Gwonsik kisses her. The episode 6 centers on a family dealing with a devastating loss after a major disaster in 1978-79. It starts with a moment of foreshadowing. One of the characters regrets not giving a final hug, setting up the emotional gut punch that follows. The episode then jumps into the story of a mother, father, and their children facing an impending storm and the aftermath of a tragedy that forever changes them. Asin rushes to help GM Mayung with her bicycle just as a typhoon looms, leaving her children in the care of a drowsy neighbor. However, upon returning home, she finds them missing. The entire town joins the search, ultimately finding her older son safe, but discovering her younger son lifeless near the seawall. Devastated, Asin and Guan-sik mourn for 3 days, struggling with grief and guilt. Asin recalls her mother's words on resilience, while their eldest son carries a heavy burden of guilt. Guan-sik also recognizes a similar weight on GM Mayung. Determined to move forward, he returns to work while Asin resumes her responsibilities, though she develops a deep bitterness toward the sea. She confesses her self-blame to Guan-sik, but he reassures her that they must continue living for their remaining children. Years later, Asin discovers that Guan-sik has secretly blamed himself all along for not saving their son in time. Their younger son, young Guan-sik, also breaks down under similar guilt. However, amidst their grief, the quiet support of the community emerges. Food is left at their door, and their landlords secretly keep their rice jar filled just enough for survival. Asin recalls confronting her landlord, not for help, but for pretending to be indifferent despite their acts of kindness. She also learns that her stepfather's wife had been secretly paying their rent and that the Haenyeo women had saved seafood for her while she was pregnant. Time passes, and GM Mayung successfully passes her exams and prepares to leave for college in Seoul. There, Asin and Guan-sik meet her future fiancé, Park Wai-bam. The episode ends with Park Wai-bam and GM Mayung together while Asin and Guan-sik walk hand in hand. Asin suggests selling their cabbage field to buy a house, but Guan-sik gently insists that she keep it. The eldest daughter, now navigating young adulthood, has a moment where she meets someone who might play a role in her future. There's a brief subplot where her father seems protective of her, hinting at how much the past has shaped their present lives. The episode ends with lingering sadness, but also a message about resilience. The family will never be the same, but they must keep moving forward. The foreshadowing, the emotional weight, and the storytelling all come together to deliver one of the most powerful episodes of the series. This episode takes on 2 parallel stories, one centered on a son, the mother, and the other on her daughter Jaeyoung, both facing struggles of class, gender, and social expectations in late 1980s South Korea. In Dodongri, a son is caught in a political battle against town chief Bu Sang-gil, as government officials attempt to clear street vendors ahead of the 1988 Seoul Olympics torch relay. A son stands up for the vendors, marking the beginning of a rivalry that escalates when she challenges Sang-gil for the fishing co-op chief position. The election turns personal as Sang-gil attacks Lee-seon's family, particularly her son Yong-gun, who is perceived as a troublemaker. Lee-seon's campaign faces dirty politics, but her integrity, community support, and the exposure of Sang-gil's scandalous behavior lead to her historic victory as the first female co-op chief. The town's elderly women reflect on her late mother's pride, emphasizing how Lee-seon has defied societal expectations. Meanwhile, in Seoul, Lee-seon's daughter Gaeyoung struggles with class divides while working as a tutor for Oh Jenny, a wealthy but academically weak girl. Jenny's mother offers Gaeyoung a life-changing deal: take Jenny's college entrance exam in exchange for an apartment in Seoul. Despite her financial struggles, Gaeyoung refuses, upholding her integrity. However, instead of gratitude, she faces humiliation, falsely accused of theft as she leaves. The contrast between her principles and her treatment underscores the rigid class barriers that persist despite her education. The episode closes with a poignant reflection on how parents wish for a gentle world for their children, but reality remains harsh. Lee-seon's victory in her small fishing village contrasts with her daughter's continued struggles in a supposedly more advanced city. Yet, both mother and daughter display the same resilience, proving that integrity carries forward across generations. The episode ties personal struggles to South Korea's broader socio-political changes in the 1980s, highlighting how traditional values clashed with modernization and economic shifts. As Lee-seon embraces her new leadership role, Guan-sik takes a rare trip to Seoul, under the excuse of visiting a museum but truly hoping to see his daughter. While waiting for Jaeyoung, he runs into Jong Byum, a young man interested in her. Jongbyum tries to impress Gwansik, but the father quickly sees through him. When Jongbyum admits that Jae-young has rejected him more than 8 times, Gwansik realizes his daughter is mirroring Iseon's past, pushing away someone she might actually care about, just as Iseon once did with him. Back at the police station, Jae-young insists on her innocence and refuses to call her parents, not wanting to burden them. Unexpectedly, she is rescued by a mysterious servant, a woman from the same Busan motel that Iseon and Gwansik helped years ago. Using blackmail, she forces the wealthy mother to drop the charges, proving that kindness has a way of returning when least expected. Meanwhile, the spoiled student Jae-young was tutoring ends up in trouble herself, blaming her mother for raising her without discipline. This contrast highlights how Jae-young's hardships and the values her parents instilled in her gave her true strength, while privilege alone left her student weak and directionless. Later that night, Jae-young finally calls Iseon, breaking down in tears. She learns that her father had come to Seoul looking for her, making her feel even guiltier. She has always felt like a burden, believing her parents sacrificed too much for her. Now, she struggles with the guilt of pursuing her dreams while they remain behind, still suffering. In a touching flash-forward, we see Jae-young's wedding, where Gwansik tells her that no matter how far she flies, her father will always be there for her. The final moments, the price of a dream. In the final scenes of episode 8, Iseon returns to her old high school, where she once dreamed of being a poet. She watches as a group of students compete in a poetry contest, and when one of the elderly villagers submits a poem Iseon once wrote, she unexpectedly wins the competition. Even after everything she has been through, Iseon's voice still holds power. However, there is a heartbreaking truth. She can't bring herself to look at any boy the same age as Dongmin when he died. The grief remains, forever shaping her. Similarly, Gwansik imagines what their son would have been like, buying food for boys his age, as if trying to fill the void in his heart. At the university, Jae-young's classmates discuss loss, and Jerem makes an insensitive comment. Nobody at school knows that Jae-young lost a brother, but the weight of that grief is always with her. The episode closes with Iseon and Gwansik making one final sacrifice. They sell Iseon's mother's home to pay for Jae-young's studies in Japan. Just as Iseon once gave up her own dreams, she now gives up her past to ensure Jae-young has a future. The last scene is Iseon dreaming of her mother, finally talking about Dongmin. She is strong, but some wounds never heal. As the family moves into a small apartment, Jae-young is finally free to fly. But at what cost? Final thoughts. The weight of love v. sacrifice. Episodes 7 and 8 masterfully balance hope and heartbreak, showing how Iseon's sacrifices are now reflected in Jae-young's journey. The series continues to highlight themes of class struggle, parental sacrifice, and the weight of expectations, leaving us with a powerful message. A parent's love is often measured in the things they let go of, rather than the things they hold on to. As Jae-young flies toward her future, Iseon and Gwansik remain behind, carrying the weight of every choice they made for her. When Life Gives You Tangerines proves once again that it is not just a drama, it is a story that leaves a lasting mark on the heart. Diving into episodes 9 to 12 of When Life Gives You Tangerines. These episodes are full of surprises, tough choices, and new relationships that'll keep you hooked. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. So stay tuned, let's jump right into it. Iseon, Gwansik, and their son Eun-myung move into a modest apartment in Seoul after selling their house to fund Ji-myung's education. Ae-sun returns to her previous work as a street vendor, selling fish, to support the family. In Japan, Ji-myung feels guilty about her family's sacrifices on her behalf. Back in Seoul, she assists her landlord's daughter in hiding her boyfriend, leading to complications when the landlord discovers them. Eun-myung introduces his girlfriend, Boo Hyun-suk, to his family, causing tension due to differing expectations. Despite her qualifications, Ji-myung struggles to secure employment, highlighting societal challenges. The episode delves into Ae-sun's recurring dreams about her lost son, Dong-myung, highlighting her unresolved grief. Iseon visits Seoul, anxious about Ji Myung's well-being. She finds Ji Myung unconscious from carbon monoxide poisoning in her apartment and saves her. Chong Seop, an artist, develops feelings for Ji Myung and introduces her to his mother, who doesn't like her because she belonged to a poor family. Eun Myung faces violence due to family conflicts but remains committed to his relationship with Hyun Suk. Ji Myung and Yongbum's families meet to discuss their wedding plans. Yongbum's mother's harsh treatment of Ji Myung creates significant tension. Ji Myung calls off the engagement, ending their 7-year relationship due to the family's lack of respect and support. Yongbum's mother's interference highlights societal pressures and class differences, influencing Ji Myung's decision. Ji Myung returns to Jeju Island, heartbroken after the breakup, returns home, where her father comforts her, telling her that calling off the engagement was the right decision. He reassures her that the family didn't deserve her, and he doesn't mind if she gets married or not. During this time, both her parents have been incredibly supportive, taking great care of her. After a period of healing, Ji Myung heads back to Seoul. Some time later, their son, Eun Myung, returns from military training. He surprises his parents by announcing that he and Boo Hyun Suk are now married and pregnant. This news infuriates Ae-sun and Gwon-sik as they react harshly to their son's decision, showing their disapproval. However, their reaction highlights the contradiction in their behavior, as they had done something similar in their youth, defying expectations just as their son did. Chong Seop, recently discharged from the military, spots Ji Myung at a bus stop in Seoul and attempts to approach her, ending the episode on a cliffhanger as he chases after her bus. These episodes deepen the emotional complexity of the characters, particularly Ji Myung and Ae-sun. Ji Myung's journey from heartbreak to self-discovery is poignant, and the introduction of Chong Seop adds a layer of romantic tension. Ae-sun's struggle with past traumas and her protective instincts toward her daughter are portrayed with depth. The series continues to excel in character development, offering viewers a heartfelt exploration of love, family, and societal expectations.
Episode 13 opens in 1998 with Yang Biem attending Ji Myung's wedding, marking a poignant moment as he watches her marry someone else. The narrative then shifts back a year, highlighting significant family developments. Eun Myung and Hyun Suk welcome their first child, leading to a heated argument between Eun Myung and his father, Gwon-sik. Eun Myung accuses Gwon-sik of not providing enough wealth, depriving him of experiences. Ae soon intervenes, reminding Eun Myung of his father's hard work and dedication to the family. Amidst these family dynamics, South Korea faces a national financial crisis, resulting in widespread unemployment. Ji Myung loses her job and struggles to find new employment. During this challenging time, she visits the old theater where she once worked, only to discover it's closing down. In a nostalgic moment, she decides to watch a movie alone. Unbeknownst to her, Chong Seop is also at the theater. Upon learning of her visit from the theater owner, he realizes his lingering feelings and spots her on a bus, leading to a frantic chase through the streets. After nearly missing her, he finally catches up, and they reconnect over drinks. Chong Seop confesses his long-held affection, and their relationship begins anew, offering Ji Myung a love where she feels she can truly be herself. That Ji Myung introduces Chong Seop to her family, where Gwon-sik questions him about his intentions. Despite his tough demeanor, Gwon-sik secretly approves, recognizing Chong Seop's genuine care for his daughter. Ae-soon is pleased to learn that Chong Seop's mother holds Ji Myung in high regard, further solidifying family bonds. The episode culminates on Ji Myung's wedding day. As she prepares to walk down the aisle with her father, Gwon-sik reassures her that she can back out at any time, emphasizing his unwavering support. Overcome with emotion, Ji Myung breaks down in tears. Chong Seop meets her halfway, gently guiding her down the aisle, symbolizing their mutual commitment and the beginning of their shared future. This episode beautifully explores themes of love, family, and resilience amidst adversity, showcasing the characters' growth and the enduring strength of their relationships. In episode 14 of When Life Gives You Tangerines, the narrative delves into the profound challenges faced by the family, emphasizing themes of resilience, sacrifice, and familial bonds. The episode opens with Eun Mayong imprisoned after his business partner absconds with their funds, leaving him to bear the consequences. During his time behind bars, Eun Mayong confronts his feelings of being overshadowed by his sister and expresses resentment towards his parents, believing they prioritized Jia Mayong's education over his aspirations. He justifies his reckless pursuit of wealth as an attempt to assert control over his life. Determined to secure Eun Mayong's release, Hyun-suk approaches her father for financial assistance, but is met with refusal. In response, Ae soon takes matters into her own hands by confronting the mother of Eun Mayong's fugitive partner. Noticing a brand new television in the woman's home, Ae soon deduces the whereabouts of the stolen money. A tense altercation ensues, culminating in Ae soon reclaiming the television and bringing it home. Facing financial constraints and unable to gather the necessary funds through loans, Kwon-sik makes the heart-wrenching decision to sell his cherished boat to secure bail for his son. This act plunges the family back into economic hardship, prompting Ae-soon to return to the marketplace to fillet squids, a testament to their enduring resilience. Upon release, Eun Mayong endeavors to rebuild his life by selling rice cakes door to door, a task he despises but undertakes out of a sense of duty. He later discovers that his father had secretly paid residents to purchase the rice cakes, highlighting Kwon-sik's unwavering support and love. This revelation fosters a deeper understanding between father and son, bridging the emotional chasm that had developed. At the end of the episode, as Ae soon decides to pick up poetry again, reigniting a passion she had long abandoned. Meanwhile, Kwon-sik, too, makes a bold and risky decision, leaving the episode on an uncertain yet hopeful note, symbolizing hope and fresh starts for their family and the pursuit of new opportunities amidst adversity. Episode 14 poignantly portrays the complexities of family dynamics, the sacrifices parents make for their children, and the enduring strength that binds them together through life's tribulations. If you are still here, please like and subscribe to my channel. Your support motivates me to keep making these videos and bringing you the best recaps and analyses. Now, let's dive into episode 15 of When Life Gives You Tangerines. The episode begins with a touching flashback where Kwon-sik and Ae sun gaze lovingly at their newborn daughter, Jia Mayong, vowing to give her everything in life. Their hopes and dreams are pure and strong. But as we shift to the present timeline, we see how much life has tested their promises. Jia Mayong is at her mother's house, packing fruits to take back with her. Ae's son, noticing the gesture, asks if her husband was fired from his job at the academy. Jia Mayong denies it, puzzled by the question. Ae's son explains, when money is tight, fruit is the first thing you stop buying. Jia Mayong reveals struggles, admitting that she quit her job and invested all her savings into a new business, leaving her financially strained. The family's troubles are mounting. Eun Mayong is injured at work, and their economic burden seems heavier than ever. As tensions build, an argument breaks out between Ae's son and Jia Mayong. Frustrated, Jia Mayong insists that her desire to give her children a better life is why she's working so hard. Meanwhile, Kwon-sik has sold their cabbage farm to developers planning to build a golf course. Jeju Island is undergoing rapid development, and real estate companies are eagerly snatching up land from locals. In a separate storyline, Hyun-sun's mother has successfully passed her real estate exam and filed for divorce, showing her determination to forge her own path. Back in the family's world, Kwon-sik and Ae's son open a seafood restaurant named Jimunding. But the decision sparks conflict. Eun Mayong angrily confronts his father about selling the cabbage farm. He argues that the land could have been used to pay for her children's education and worries that the family no longer has a real home. Ae's son defends her husband fiercely, reminding Eun Mayong that his father has sacrificed his entire life for his children and never lived a single day for himself. The argument escalates until Jia Mayong walks in, trying to ease the tension and suggesting they all go home. It's later revealed that she had lent them money borrowed from friends to help them out. Ae's son breaks down in tears, asking why she did it. Jia Myong, carrying the guilt of her parents' sacrifices, says, "I am the eldest daughter. That's why." Her frustration and guilt boil over as she admits that their past sacrifices to send her abroad for education have left her feeling burdened, as if her existence has been a constant struggle for her parents. Her words break Guan-sik's heart. After Jia Myong leaves, Ae's son dismisses her concerns as mere tantrums. But as they both glance at the fridge, they notice a note Jia Myong left, revealing her pregnancy. Ae's son collapses into tears, lamenting that Jia Myong left in anger, forgetting to even take the fruits she packed for her. She breaks down, realizing that her daughter is now struggling financially, pregnant, and walking around borrowing for money, just like she did in the past. Tragedy strikes when Jia Myong ends up in the hospital, fighting for her life after giving birth prematurely. But despite the hardship, life continues to move forward. The family's seafood restaurant gradually prospers, and Jia Myong works tirelessly, proudly telling her clients that her mother is the inspiration behind her company's brand, which promotes the values of whoever, wherever, whenever. In a touching turn of events, a famous actress, someone Guan-sik once helped during a dark moment, preventing her from committing suicide, volunteers to film a commercial for their restaurant as a way to repay his kindness. Her gesture breathes new life into their business. The episode closes with a heartwarming scene where everyone gathers at the bustling restaurant. It's a testament to how far they've come, despite all the struggles and heartbreak along the way. Episode 16 begins with a bustling scene at the Yang family's restaurant, brimming with lively customers and the cheerful clatter of dishes. Ae's son, radiant and energized, moves gracefully through the crowded space, her face alight with genuine happiness. Their once relentless financial struggles have finally eased, replaced by the satisfaction of hard-earned success and a thriving business. In episode 16, the narrative reaches a poignant conclusion, encapsulating decades of love, sacrifice, and personal growth within the family. The episode centers on the declining health of Guan-sik. In his final moments, he expresses regret to Ae's son for not providing her with an easier life. Ae's son reassures him, saying, "Thanks to you, I was never lonely for a day," highlighting the deep bond they shared throughout their lives. The episode also delves into the romantic journey of their daughter, Yang Jia Myong. After ending a 7-year relationship with her first love due to familial pressures, Jia Myong finds companionship with artist Park Chung-seob. Reflecting on her relationships, she notes, the size of the love wasn't different. The temperature was. It was the temperature that let me be myself. I found my prince. In her later years, Ae's son fulfills her lifelong aspiration of becoming a published poet. She dedicates a poem to Guan-sik, expressing gratitude for their shared life and experiences. Additionally, Ae's son volunteers at a local nursing home, teaching residents to read and write, and finds joy in being addressed as teacher, a title that brings her a sense of accomplishment and purpose. A notable subplot involves the character Chloe Lee, an editor who bears a striking resemblance to Ae's son's late mother. This resemblance suggests themes of reincarnation and enduring connections between generations. A poignant moment unfolds as Ae's son, now in her 70s, reflects on aging, stating, "Getting old is nothing special. You feel the same on the inside, but when you look in the mirror, you see an old woman. That's all aging is." This sentiment encapsulates the series' exploration of time, change, and the enduring essence of self. The series concludes with a flashback to the 1960s, depicting Ae's son and Guan-sik in a flower field, capturing a moment of pure joy and love. This scene serves as a heartfelt reminder of their enduring bond and the timeless nature of their affection. When Life Gives You Tangerines is a beautifully crafted K-drama that tells a heartfelt, realistic story of love, sacrifice, and resilience. Set against the serene backdrop of Jeju Island, it follows Ae's son and Guan-sik's journey through decades of hardship and devotion as they raise their children. The series masterfully captures the complexity of family relationships, generational struggles, and personal growth, especially through Jia Mayon's emotional journey from heartbreak to healing. It's not about dramatic twists or extravagant love stories. It's about life's quiet moments, the pain of letting go, and the courage to start over. The series ends with a tender flashback, reminding viewers that true love often exists in the simplest, most genuine moments. When Life Gives You Tangerines leaves you with a sense of warmth, nostalgia, and a deep appreciation for life's imperfect beauty.